the great conservative movement of America and of our time. A brush fire of freedom that's being lit all over this country. We, as an irate, tireless American populace, will overcome a few radical leftists that control the levers of power today. Joe Biden's failed economic policies has given us inflation like you can't believe, and the border is in disarray.
It's amazing how few of the people commenting on this have actually bothered to go see what's happening. Well, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona actually went to the border.
Biggs, where's Andy? Boy, oh boy, Andy. There's a guy. He's tough.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of What's the Biggs Idea, my semi-regular podcast. I'm Andy Biggs, Congressman from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. I am so pleased to welcome a friend and man, he's just doing a great job on the border. He hosts Law and Border on Real America's Voice News. He's the founder of Frontline America. He earned both his bachelor's and master's from Fresno State University. He's previously worked as a journalist in the synthetic grass and fitness industry, but there's just a handful of people that I trust to tell us about the border, and Ben Bergquam is one of them. Ben, thanks for joining me today on my podcast.
Andy, it is, Congressman. It's always a pleasure. I'm used to calling you Andy, but
you're good. You're good calling me Andy. That's right.
I know. You're one of the few out there that's fighting like we need to have, people in D.C. fighting, and I appreciate you for that, sir.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that so much. And Ben, you've been down at the border this week. Tell us what you found.
Well, as you know, I've been covering this for years. The invasion on our southern border. I'm actually back in California for a little while, visiting family. And this is where it all started. I went to Fresno State, as you mentioned, and I wasn't even aware of what the border was doing years ago. And until I had illegal aliens in my classes getting full ride scholarships, and I was paying my way through school. I still have student loan debts that I don't want Joe Biden to take care of because I chose to get them. But I was pissed off that the illegals were in my class getting full ride scholarships, and that led me down this trail. And so we've been covering it for years now, and I've been following what's happened under President Trump and how he fixed the border, and now under Joe Biden and how he's utterly destroyed it, and Secretary Mayorkas. As you know, Title 42 ended just a few weeks ago, and so I went down right after. Went down before that and after that, and then I just came back from a trip. I wanted to see a few weeks afterwards what's actually happening down there. You have Karine Jean-Pierre saying that the numbers are lower, that they're taking care of this, and I just wanted to see firsthand what's actually happening. And what I found was actually worse than I had anticipated. We have really, there's whole stretches of border that are totally unmanned now. You have no border patrol. Border patrol resources have been pulled to process. They're using the CBP-1 app, which is basically de facto amnesty. They've just changed the definition from illegal to legal using this app. They're bringing people across the ports of entry so you don't see them. They don't appear to be illegal, but they're all still illegal. They all will not qualify. The vast majority will not qualify for the claim of admittance into America. And Joe Biden knows that. Secretary Mayorkas knows that. The left knows that. But they're doing this to try to fool the American people. And so I started in El Paso, went actually into New Mexico, Sunland Park, New Mexico, and made several stops along the way going back to the Gulf of Mexico. It's an absolute disaster. It's everything they're saying out of Washington, D.C. is a lie.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, CBP, their jurisdiction covers between the ports, and OFO covers at the ports of entry. And so the numbers that are being reported that we all watched most carefully typically have been CBP. And the reason that we watch those is because that's where you have the give-ups as well as the gotaways. And so you've got this strange thing between the ports of entry, and that's where they say the numbers are going down. But in the meantime, numbers are skyrocketing at the ports of entry with people coming in illegally who do not qualify to be in our country. So, but then the narrative that's been created by the DC folks is that, see, we've got this thing under control between the ports of entry. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's exactly right. They've basically just taken a huge group of people. They've upped the number to just under 1,500 per day that they're processing, which if you multiply that out over the course of a year, that's 500,000. That's 500,000 people that now they're moving through the ports of entry that would otherwise be illegals that would swim across the river. But they're saying, well, just come through this way, apply through this application. We'll let you in the door. You don't even have to be claiming asylum. You can basically make up any reason you want. We'll give you a notice to appear, which could happen 2 to 5 years from now, and just come on in. And then really what it's done is it's just streamlined this invasion. And so what it's also done, though, is, as you mentioned, between the ports of entry, it's taken the resources of Border Patrol that would typically be out there manning the line, and it's moved them to these processing centers to help move these people through. It's the worst of all worlds, because it creates the deception that they're actually decreasing the numbers coming across, when in reality they're incentivizing more people coming across. And in the areas where we most need Border Patrol to be present and to be apprehending, where the cartels running their drugs and their human trafficking through, we pulled Border Patrol resources off the line. And so again, it's the worst of both worlds, and it's all designed to deceive the American people so that they can make the claim that they're decreasing the numbers, when in reality they're just inviting more of it.
Right. I mean, it's for narrative and cynical political purposes. So Ben, what I want to do now is you sent us a video clip from this week, and I'm going to ask Cassie Ray to play that for us. And if you play that clip, please.
Wide open out here, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that sucks.
Film it.
I am.
Thank you for calling it in, but we have nobody to work it, sir. Manpower is nil.
God bless you, brother.
You too, sir. Be careful out there.
Yeah, hopefully we get somebody in office that'll actually let you guys do your jobs, huh?
Heard, sir. Heard. Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
You too, sir.
So Ben, where was that?
That's in a stretch of border. I had just come from the mountains of Mount Cristo Rey outside of El Paso, Texas, Sunland Park, New Mexico. And Border Patrol there had told me that they were apprehending between 700 and 1,000 people per day. And it's in a stretch of about 5 miles. I witnessed illegals on top of the mountain 3 days straight coming up, taunting Border Patrol. So I decided to go up and investigate. I actually interviewed some of the cartel coyotes. And then the scary part to me was I had a Border Patrol pull me aside and say, hey, just so you know, we're apprehending between 700 and 1,000 a day, but we estimate just in this stretch, there's between 4,000 and 5,000 that are coming across a day. So he told me they're only getting between a fourth and a fifth of what's actually coming across. And he said, and out there, past Santa Teresa port of entry, for about 20 miles out to Columbus, New Mexico, we don't have any Border Patrol. There's nobody. So I decided to drive out there and see what I could find. And it was the most shocking thing I've ever seen. I was driving down the wall. That was actually live footage of me on the phone with the Border Patrol station. I was filming illegals coming over, and as I was driving, I saw group after group after group. I saw ladder after ladder after ladder. The cartel is operating at will for about a 20-mile stretch. It's wide open, and as you heard from there, you could hear the desperation in his voice. They've got nobody. They've got, as Mayorkas is saying, the border is secure. I've got Border Patrol people in the sector headquarters telling me they have nobody to send, as I'm witnessing cartels bringing illegals over the wall in real time. That is the reality of what's happening on our border. Not what DC is telling you, not what Mayorkas is telling you. This is what's happening. So I decided, after that, I just went and started cutting down their ladders. I figured, the least I can do is slow them down. It's wide open, and the cartels are making a killing right now because of what's happening in DC.
You better be careful cutting down the ladders that belong to cartels, Ben. You and I both know that. So I would just point out the last time I was driving down I think I have talked about the San Miguel Gate and the Tohono O'odham Reservation near the Babos Mountains in southern Arizona. And, the reality is last time I was there, we're driving along a road. It's just me and I think we had 1 or 2 members of Congress with us, a couple others in the cab of this truck, and we're just driving along. Left the San Miguel Gate, and we're driving, must have been eastbound. So we're driving eastbound. And Ben, Literally, this is in the middle of nowhere. And what do we come upon? A group of 22 individuals. Um, and we said, where are you coming from? They said, well, we met our coyotes down in Caborca, and then they drove us up here 2 hours. They dropped us off, and we've been walking for 2.5 hours. And they said, just keep walking towards the Babos, because the Babo Mountains, the Babakiviri Mountains. And then when you get there, you're going to come across a barbed wire fence. Go through the barbed wire and sit down and wait there, because there'll be border patrol there. And we were the first ones along. We said, how long you been here? And they said, 2.5 hours. And the reason is what you say. There's not enough staffing anymore, because everybody's at this. They were working at the soft-sided or the processing facilities. Right. And we could barely get service. We get service, and finally someone said, look, I'm standing here with a couple of congressmen. And then all of a sudden, you got 6 or 7 cars come up. Not all of a sudden. It took them about 45 minutes to an hour to get there. But that's what it is. Our border is so thin and porous. We don't know what we don't know. And you got a bunch of people on the other side who say that this is all manufactured. It's not true. Yeah. But I just find it astonishing that these folks won't believe their own eyes, including members of Congress.
And that's, I would say, precisely why Joe Biden has made one trip to the border, and Kamala Harris, as far as I know, has not made a single trip to the border. And they basically go to where they get the dog and pony show. They get taken around by cartel congresswomen like Veronica Escobar, rather than actually getting to see it. And you have media outlets that there's a reason why we're typically the only ones down there, or other independent media is the only ones down there showing this. The mainstream media doesn't want to see it. And I would say they're probably the most culpable in this. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, these organizations that have millions of dollars in budget that could go down there and show you the child trafficking, show you the drug trafficking, but they simply don't want to, because it doesn't fit their narrative. As you mentioned, where I was in that little stretch, and by the way, the reason I cut them down, those ladders, it's on American soil. And right. I think it's our duty as American citizens, whether we're in law enforcement or not, to protect our country just like we protect our own homes. And I can't sit there and watch these guys invade our country, spit in our face, run their drugs into our communities, and stand by and do nothing, especially when you're doing it on our property. So I think it's the least we can do to cut a few ladders down. And if it pisses them off, so be it. But this is happening. This is not just there. This is at every point along the border, the 2,000 miles, the vast majority of the 2,000 miles of our southern border is virtually unmanned. And that's what you have. And the other side to that, Congressman Biggs, is the illegals, as you mentioned. The cartel coyotes say, go over there and wait for a border patrol to show up. So even what Secretary Marcus is saying about using Title VIII to deport people is a lie. They all know it now. All they have to do is appeal their deportation. They get a stay of deportation. They're put in line with the CBP-1 apps. They get a notice to appear, and they're shipped into our country. So everything they're saying is a lie. And then on top of that, these same leftist organizations, these NGOs, Catholic Charities, and the rest of them are profiting, as the cartels profiting on that. And you have these groups of illegals that are being brought across, and many of them are dying out in the desert. So the very organizations and people that say they care about the people coming in, that say we don't have a crisis on our southern border, are allowing the people to die and allowing the children to be trafficked. And all you hear out of Washington and all you see from the mainstream media is saying this is conspiracy theory, when all you have to do is do what I do. Take your phone down, take your camera down, spend 20 minutes, and you'll see it.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, you are so right. I mean, I get so frustrated because the federal government helps fund and support a lot of those NGOs. Those NGOs help incentivize people to come over. They're coming over, they're turning over their lives to these cartels who are inhumane. And good grief, if you think we're kidding on that, just look at Mexican language newspapers, newsprint, media online, and you will see the depravity of these cartels, and then what they do to children and women and even men now. I mean, it's grotesque and it's evil.
It's pure evil. Pure evil.
And they have no respect for human life whatsoever. So we're called alarmists for bringing that forward, but it has to be brought forward, because how can we say we're a civilized nation when we allow this kind of human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking to go forward in an industry that is run by cartels that are making literally tens of billions of dollars per year in this kind of criminal trade. In fact, it is probably the biggest growth industry in Mexico today.
Yeah, no, but it absolutely is. As you mentioned, the billions actually in that little sector where we started out in El Paso, just year to date, the cartel that's operating there has made $3 billion because of the Biden border policy. $3 billion. You talk about being well armed, and one of the things that we don't ever talk about, it's very rarely ever even considered, is what's happening. So we know the drugs and the people are coming north across the border, but every single day we have the money and the guns going south across the border. The same people that are attacking the Second Amendment in America for law-abiding citizens to be able to own guns, ignoring the fact that inner cities are devolving into pure anarchy because of the Democrat policies. We are arming the cartels that we are also funding. I mean, this is what's happening, and it's a direct correlation. There's a direct correlation between the policies coming out of Washington, D.C., and the arming of the cartels and the fundings of the cartels. And as you mentioned, it's not federal it's not federal money that's paying for these NGOs. The NGOs are operating in conjunction with the cartels, and it's our money. It's taxpayers. The federal government has, you know this. I mean, they have no money. It's all of our money. So they're taking our money. They're sending it to these NGOs, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Social Services, Jewish Family Services. There's a 9 group of umbrella organizations that then trickle down into El Otro Lado and Pueblo Sin Fronteras and Centro Sin Fronteras and all of these other leftist NGOs that then not only are on the U.S. side transporting, feeding, housing, creating this new industry, Democrat industry of illegal immigration. They're on the Mexico side training people and coaching them on how to game our immigration system. It is national suicide. It's the perfect, it's the illustration of a Trojan horse, a 2023 Trojan horse. And we're watching it in front of us. And as you mentioned, you have the mainstream media. When a movie comes out that exposes it, like Sound of Freedom, they're out there attacking this movie for showing the facts rather than attacking the demons that are trafficking and raping children. I mean, that's how upside down our world has gotten.
Yeah, just 2 quick points on that. There's a great book out, and I can't pump a book because this is official, but I've recently been reading a book called Operation Wide Receiver, related to Operation Fast and Furious, and if you want to know how many guns are going south, look at those 2 operations run by ATF. I mean, we were flooding guns down, and we know that we had one of those guns from Fast and Furious, which is about 10 years ago now at least, came up in a crime just about 2 months ago. Those guns that ATF was sending down to Mexico with a really ill-conceived idea called gun walking, it's resurfaced in the U.S. At a crime scene, and so we do that. The other aspect to it too is we know that when we've run operations in the ports of entry where people are going back, they have found millions of dollars, but they never really run those operations. They say, well, we don't have the resources. Well, we've got to get the resources to stop the guns and the money going south, because.
Well, and real quick, I don't mean to catch up, but we don't have the resources because we're wasting them on inviting people to invade our country. I mean, this is how insane this is. CBP could do this every single day, our ports of entry, and I watch it. You go down to El Paso, go to the ports of entry, and watch the nefarious business that's going on there. And all you have to think is, all you have to have is one gun and money sniffing dog walk back and forth on the return into Mexico lines, and you would find group after group, vehicle after vehicle. And as you said, they are not doing it because we're using all of our resources to invite the invasion the other direction. It's asinine.
So 2 last things. We're about out of time. Number 1, I want to say that our CBP and OFO officers and ICE officers are trying their best to enforce the law. It is their management and this administration that is preventing them from doing that. It is outrageous, and it's it leads me to the next question. Secretary Mayorkas is going to be in before the House Judiciary Committee in a week or two. And my question for you is, if you had two questions you could ask Secretary Mayorkas, what would you ask him?
Well, part of me wants to say I wouldn't ask him anything because I know what a fraud he is based on the evidence I've already seen. But what I would say is, we know the cartels control Mexico. The vast majority of politicians and representatives in Mexico, it's a failed narco state, are controlled by the cartels. What investigations are you doing to find out what politicians are controlled by the cartels in America? And are you, sir, controlled by the cartels? Have you received any money from the cartels? Otherwise, why are you doing what you're doing? Your policies, and I would preface it this way, I would start it by saying, if I was the cartel and I were to design policies to benefit me and my organization, I would do exactly what Washington, D.C., what the United States is doing right now.
Yeah.
And then I would lead into, are you controlled by the cartels?
So I want to amplify that. I've been dying to say this since you and I have been talking today. If you understand, if you've been watching this like Ben and I have for a long time, you understand what the cartels used to have to do. So under previous administrations, even under Obama, if a coyote was going to run you across the border, you would pay your money, but they would take you to a location in the United States, because if you were caught, you were going to be deported. They had some provisions to remove you. Now the cartel does not have to take you up to Phoenix. The cartel just needs to take you to the line and say, stand there, wait there, cross that in this instance that I'm talking about down at the TORS, cross the 4-strand barbed wire, wait there in the shade, make sure, and just wait, because a Border Patrol agent will happen along, and you're going to be into the country, and they're going to release you into the country. And then once they release you with these notices to appear, notices, whatever you want to call those notices, they're bogus. That's all the cartel has to do. We've made it so easy.
That's right.
That is why we had testimony just a few weeks ago in a committee hearing where an observer of the border said, you're now the number one logistical facilitator for child and human trafficking, because that's all the cartel has to do is just get in there, drop them off, and you'll take them wherever they go. And then ORR, Office of Refugee and Resettlement, has admitted that they've lost contact with over 85,000 children. So, I mean, and that's admitted. I mean, people say, "Oh, Andy, you're fantastic." No, that's what the head of ORR has admitted. And so it's complete disarray, and you couldn't have designed this better for cartels. That's right now why in a couple places along the border right now you actually have some battles between cartels to control plazas, because it is so easy to make oodles and oodles of money, and that's what this government has done.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the legislation that we have passed out will actually get through the Senate maybe one day and take an impact. But everyone, I thank you for joining us today. I'm especially thankful for my guest, Ben Bergquam, who does an excellent job reporting on the border situation. And we'll keep people posted, and I'll keep fighting here in DC to get the laws changed and enforce that.
And if I could jump in and say one more thing to the audience.
Yeah.
I would just say, guys, do us a favor. Share the information that Andy Biggs puts out. Share the information that Real America's Voice News and FrontlineAmerica.com put out. This is the truth that they don't want you to see while we're distracted by the attacks on President Trump and all the lies coming out by this injustice department. It's up to us. It's up to the citizens. It's up to we, the people, to share the truth. That's why I do what I do. But we can't do that. Congressman Biggs can't do that without your help. And that's what I would ask you guys to do, is to share this with everyone, influence the people you have influence over, to your friends, to your family, and then out to your coworkers and everyone else in between. We have to get this right by 2024, or else our country's dead.
Thanks, Ben. Take care, and we'll talk to you, I guess, next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks.